Good Thursday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for March the 30th. Today we are reading together in Leviticus chapter 19. Leviticus chapter 19, which continues our work through the holiness code that concludes this book of Exodus. Today, specifically here in chapter 19, we have numerous laws concerning holiness and basically a retelling of the Ten Commandments, but a bit out of order and not exactly in this using the exact same type of language, though some have found at least a plausible connection to each of the Ten Commands here in Leviticus 19, and I will make note of those as we work through it after a read through this text. Thanks so much for taking time to read along with me on this Thursday. Just a reminder right now, before I forget, that tomorrow is the 31st, so we will have a catch-up day tomorrow. No new read tomorrow, but we will pick back up again on Saturday, April the 1st. No fooling, dead serious. We will be reading in Leviticus chapter 20 on Saturday. Hope that you will join in then. Let me get the text of Leviticus 19 up on the screen for us today, and let's get to reading here in Leviticus chapter 19. I think this might be the first day, 19-ish days in, that I finally have not almost accidentally said Exodus. So we're doing good. Finally, we're 2/3 of the way through the book and finally kicked that bad habit, which I'm sure will be about halfway through Numbers as I continue to say Leviticus or something like that. Nevertheless, here we go. Leviticus 19, verse number 1. Yahweh spoke to Moses, speak to the entire Israelite community and tell them, be holy. Yes, I, Yahweh, your God, am holy. That's the foundation of this entire chapter. Everything needs to be read through those lenses of be holy because I, Yahweh, your God, am holy. Each of you, verse number 3 of Leviticus 19, is to respect his mother and father. You are to keep my Sabbaths. I am Yahweh, your God. Do not turn to worthless idols or make cast images of gods for yourselves. I am Yahweh, your God. Keep count of that real fast. Keep counting the number of times that you see, I am Yahweh, your God. I believe I have a number. Let's see if your number matches up with mine. And actually, now that I'm reading it, I think my number might be a little bit different, but see how many times you see it. So far, we have 3 through verse number 4. Verse number 5, when you offer a fellowship sacrifice to Yahweh, sacrifice it so that you may be accepted. It is to be eaten on the day you sacrifice it or on the next day, but what remains on the third day must be burned. If any is eaten on the third day, it is a repulsive thing. It will not be accepted. Anyone who eats it will bear his iniquity, for he has profaned what is holy to Yahweh. That person is to be cut off from his people. When you reap the harvest of your land, you are not to reap the very edge of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Do not strip your vineyard bare or gather its fallen grapes. Leave them for the poor and the resident alien. I am Yahweh, your God. Do not steal, do not act deceptively or lie to another. Do not swear falsely by my name, profaning the name of your God. I am Yahweh. Do not oppress your neighbor or rob him. The wages due a hired worker must not remain with you until morning. Do not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block in front of the blind, but you are to fear your God. I am Yahweh. How horrible would that be? To curse the deaf who can't hear you, or to stick a block in front of somebody who's blind. Just terrible stuff that I guess there's the risk of being done. But all of that's going to be tied in with what we see in just a few moments, where the second great command, as Jesus says it, is going to be introduced. Verse number 15, do not act unjustly when deciding a case. Do not be partial to the poor or give preference to the rich. Judge your neighbor fairly. Do not go about spreading slander among your people. Do not jeopardize your neighbor's life. I am Yahweh. Do not harbor hatred against your brother. Rebuke your neighbor directly, and you will not incur guilt because of him. Do not take revenge or bear a grudge against members of your community, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahweh. You are to keep my statutes. Do not crossbreed 2 different kinds of your livestock. sow your fields with two kinds of seed, or put a garment made of two kind, or put on a garment made of two kinds of material. If a man has sexual intercourse with a woman who is a slave designated for another man, but she has not been redeemed or given her freedom, there must be punishment. They are not to be put to death because she has not been freed. However, he must bring a ram as his guilt offering to Yahweh at the entrance to the meeting. The priest will make atonement on his behalf before Yahweh with the ram of the guilt offering for the sin he has committed, and he will be forgiven for the sin he has committed. When you come into the land and plant any kind of tree for food, you are to consider the fruit forbidden. It will be forbidden to you for 3 years. It is not to be eaten. In the 4th year, all its fruit is to be consecrated as a praise offering to Yahweh. But in the 5th year, you may eat its fruit. In this way, its yield will increase for you. I am Yahweh your God. You are not to eat anything with blood in it. You are not to practice divination or witchcraft. You are not to cut off the hair at the sides of your beard or mar the edge of your beard. You are not to make gashes on your body for the dead or put tattoo marks on yourselves. I am Yahweh. Do not debase your daughter by making her a prostitute, or the land will be prostituted and filled with depravity. Keep my Sabbaths and revere my sanctuary. I am Yahweh. Do not turn to mediums or consult spiritist, there we go, or you will be defiled by them. I am Yahweh your God. You are to rise in the presence of the elderly and honor the old. Hear your God, I am Yahweh. When the alien resides within your land, you must not oppress him. You will regard the alien who resides with you as the native born among you. You are to love him as yourself, for you are aliens in the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh your God. Do not be unfair in measurements of length, weight, or volume. You are to have honest balances, honest weights, an honest dry measure, and an honest liquid measure. I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Keep all my statutes and all my ordinances and do them. I am Yahweh. That is Exodus chapter 19. So by my count, at least, well, let's see, actually, I'm gonna double check myself now because I'm doubting myself. I see 1, 2, 3. I see 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's see here. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, I thought I had 16. Oh, now I'm missing one. I'm missing one, maybe. Oh, no. Now this is going to bother me. I thought I had 16, but now I'm counting 15. So we'll just say around number 15. About 15 times we see I am Yahweh your God, or I am Yahweh being restated. And that is, again, the foundation of this text here in Leviticus 19. Be holy because I, Yahweh your God, am holy. So after he gives a number of these commands, he stamps those by saying, I am Yahweh. You do this to be holy because this is who I am. I am a holy being. You yourselves must be holy beings. Now, what is going to help them to achieve this, as one writer says, panoramic view of what it means to be holy? Well, to be holy, in order to be holy, you must keep Yahweh's commandments. But one keeps Yahweh's commandments when he or she loves Yahweh and loves his or her neighbor. That's really the foundation of all this. If you want to be holy, do what Yahweh says. If you're going to do what Yahweh says, it's because you love him and you love those made in his image. So that is at the root of everything that's found here in Leviticus chapter 19. I mentioned the 10 commandments. Commandment number 5 can be found in verse number 3, commandment 4 in verse number 3, commands 1 and 2 in verse number 4. I guess I should say what these are. Honor your father and mother, verse number 3. Sabbath, to keep the Sabbath, verse number 3. Verse number 4, do not have any other gods before me. Do not make any carved images. Excuse me. Command number 8, do not steal, is in verse number 11. Do not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. It is profaning Yahweh's name. That's command number 3. That's in verse number 12. Do not go slandering your neighbor. is the ninth commandment. We found that in verse 16, which is do not bear false witness against your neighbor. Some would take what is said at the end of verse 16, do not jeopardize your neighbor's life, as do not murder. That's the sixth commandment. Some would say that coveting might be what is behind what is said in verse 18, do not take revenge or bear a grudge against members of your community, but love your neighbor as yourself. Some would say that's the 10th commandment, but we know for certain that is the second great commandment that Jesus offers in the New Testament. Let's see here. I think that is it. I think that's all the ones that I see. So I think the only one that was just really weird to me that somebody said, or that some people claim, let's see, so it'd be number, let me see, let me double check this real fast, make sure I get this right. The Ten Commandments, of course, found in Exodus chapter 20. Let's see, do not commit adultery, number 7. Some would draw a connection with do not commit adultery with do not debase your daughter by making her a prostitute, or the land will be prostitute and filled with depravity. I don't quite get that. I think that was a stretch, at least in my mind. So pretty much I see here 9 out of the 10 commandments are either expressly restated or there are hints of them. And if you, I guess, want to stretch it that far, you might say all 10 commandments. I see 9 pretty clearly, with that 10th one being iffy. But again, it makes sense that to be holy would be to keep the 10 great commandments that were specified by Yahweh to Moses in Exodus chapter 20. Now, again, I think this is a panoramic view of holiness. It covers a number of different facets and areas of life. Holiness looks like devout worship. Holiness looks like honesty. Holiness looks like being a person of integrity. It looks like being a just person, being a charitable person, being a loving person. So if you want to just summarize all of this, that's what it means. It means to be someone who seeks to excel in each of these areas: worship, honesty, integrity, justice, charity, and then love. Now, there are some maybe weird ones here within this particular chapter. I would say the vast majority of these are probably pretty straightforward, that either straightforward just in thinking about what they mean, or either these are things that have already been covered in previous chapters. For example, let's see here. We've talked about the eating the certain sacrifices in an appropriate time, verses 5 through 8. Make sure you eat them. If you wait too long, that you're going to be repulsive before Yahweh. Let's see here. Verse number 26 talks about you can't eat blood. We've read about that in chapter 17. So there are a number of issues that have already been discussed. What about some that haven't been? Well, one of them is verses 9 and 10, which talks about whenever you harvest, don't harvest everything. Leave the outside of your fields. Leave the falling grapes behind. Why? To care for those who are poor, care for the resident alien. So it is a command to take care of those less fortunate than you. Also, verse 19 is a pretty strange one. And in fact, this is one of those verses that people will throw out there, particularly whenever you think about like the issue of homosexuality. Somebody might say, well, you cannot participate in homosexual activity because the Levitical law says so. And somebody will say, well, the Levitical law also says that you can't crossbreed 2 different kinds of livestock, or sow 2 different kinds of seed in a field, or wear clothing with two different patterns. And that's just ridiculous. If that's what God says, then we can't take him seriously with the homosexual practice either. This is a favorite of some that would say that. But the idea here in the Levitical law is to teach the Israelites to keep distinct that which God has divided. Just as that principle is going to govern them as a people whenever they enter the promised land, you remain distinct from the pagans. So they learned in this way to keep things distinct from one another. To us, it might seem a bit ridiculous. It does seem a bit ridiculous in our context, but it was the command of Yahweh. He was their God. He brought them out of the land of Egypt. He could lay that command on them if he so chooses, and he did, but he did for a purpose to teach them about distinctiveness. Verses 23, 24, and 25 talk about whenever you go into the land, don't eat the fruit for the first few years. Some some speculate maybe just because the fruit wouldn't be very good at that point. But the fourth year, you have to offer that to Yahweh, and then the fifth year, you can eat it. This puts forth the principle that God gets first dibs. He is the God of first fruits. You're to offer that to him once it is time to do so. Verses 26 through 28 talk about these pagan customs. Again, not eating anything with blood in it, not practicing divination or witchcraft, cutting the sides of your beard or the side of your head, with the hair on the sides of your head or the side of your beard, not making gashes in your body for the dead or putting tattoo marks on you. All of these, each of these behaviors and actions have pagan connotations associated with them. These would have been things that pagan worshipers did as a part of their worship activities. So do not do them. Do not be like them. In addition, the disfigurement portion goes against creative order. So don't participate in those things as well. Obviously, do not give your daughter over to prostitution. That definitely should not be done. And then keeping the Sabbath is reiterated in verse number 30. Also reverence for Yahweh's sanctuary. Verse 31 as well, getting into pagan practices about going to mediums or consulting the spiritists. If you do, you're going to be defiled by them. And maybe this brings to all of our minds what takes place in 1 Samuel chapter 28 with the witch of Endor and King Saul. We'll read about that here in a few months or so. Beginning of verse 32 is just giving forth principles and commands concerning kindness and justice. Show kindness to the elderly, rise whenever they walk in. Show respect for them for who they are. Show respect for the resident alien that resides in you, or resides within your land. Don't be mean to them. Don't mistreat them. Don't practice xenophobia. Be good people. They are image bearers of God. You are to love him as yourself. Again, reiterating what we see the second great command that Jesus said from verse number 18. And also part of that's practical. You know what it felt like to be an alien of foreign land. You didn't like it whenever you were mistreated. Therefore, you don't do that to others. Love your neighbor as yourself. The golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And then finally, verses 35, 36, and 37, well, specifically 35 and 36, justice. Be a just person. Be an honest person. Don't have poor measurements on your length, your weight, and your volume. Make sure your scales are balanced. Make sure your weights are balanced. Make sure that your measures are balanced. Do what is right by people. Do not defraud people. And again, all of this, I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Keep all my statutes, all my ordinances, and do them. I am Yahweh. Going back to the beginning of the chapter, verse number 2, be holy, because I, Yahweh your God, am holy. A good summation is offered in a resource. God's people must conform to his holiness by keeping his commands, by dealing with others in love, by living according to his standards of separation in the world, and by demonstrating kindness and justice to all. That's a good summarization of what we see here in Leviticus 19. Be holy, because I, the Lord your God, am holy. If you have any other comments or questions about this text, please feel free to leave those in the comment section below. I appreciate you taking some time to read along with me today on this Thursday. Again, remember, tomorrow's the 31st, so it's a catch-up day. We'll be back at it again on Saturday, April the 1st, reading together from Leviticus chapter 20, which is going to get into some kind of freaky stuff, talk about Molech worship and spiritism and things of that nature. We'll be reading about that on Saturday. Hope you can join me then. Take care, and God bless.